So Heather and I have a standing meeting that about every other month we get together and we'll have conversations about things about what's going on and what's going out. And during one of our conversations, which by the way are very, I enjoy our conversations, Heather, I
I
really
do
do.
too.
The kind of no holds barred sometimes, and sometimes there are other things, but we get a lot of things done. And one of the things that kind of came up as a factor as I've been reviewing a whole bunch of packets, and as you know, she's been having some experience out in the field with folks, and we started thinking about, what can we do to help support folks, not just our brand new people that are coming in, but people that and manage the data. And what we call data management here is what can we do to help support people in a workshop format, something that's virtual, something where people can get together, because Heather has some really interesting ways that she manages some things. And there's a few things that I want to make sure that I point out through this. And then we'll have a little bit of time to talk about, what ideas or what are some of the things that you might do to help manage your data. And we're going to be sharing some links. We're going to be sharing some things and things like that. Is there anything I missed with that, Heather?
Nope, you were right on. And the next slide's got some more information for you too.
Okay. So we're just going to get started. So what is data management? In the context that we're talking about is just a matter of keeping up with what you do. And when I think about what you do and kind of the driving theory behind this for us is our reporting packet. What do we need for our reporting packet? And that old Andyism that I put in there, if it's not in the packet, it didn't happen. And I have discovered that there are some things that are not in my packet, so obviously they did not happen. And I was actually, I was very happy to have read some of the packets that had stuff in it that I was missing. So I'll get that. But it's a matter of being able to keep up with some of the things that you do. And it does include your evaluations that you'll be doing of your program. So if you're conducting evaluations, no matter how you decide you want to go about doing it, whether it's through a focus group, through a survey, or through a handout, or even a checklist, show of hands, record books, all the different ways we evaluate our programs. And of course, the materials we produce. I mean, even Heather, as we were putting this together, we were like, okay, all right, we have a PowerPoint now. What are we going to do with it? How are we going to make sure that we manage our data? So we kind of talked through our process. Well, what do we do to kind of inform what this is? And another thing I like to talk about in management, it needs to be where it's easy for you to find and access when you need it, because the data management is for you. It's not for me. It's not for Dr. Simone. It's where that when you decide, hey, I need to compile my stuff, or hey, I did this thing. I need, Marnie heard about this thing that I did, and Shayna's like, yeah, I did it. Now, where is it? Then she said, oh, yeah, I did. She'll get it and say, here, Marnie, here's that thing that you were asking me about, or vice versa. So this is a system that you can put together to help you manage what you need and then be able to access it when you need it. So before we move on too much, does anybody besides Heather have anything that they kind of do in managing stuff?
You throw it all in a folder.
Take a picture of it, keep it on your phone.
I have multiple folders in this office, and they're not even in alphabetical order.
But do they make
And now
Marnie's?
I don't even know where to go to start. Because yeah, and I will throw that out. Very important. I have to do my promotion packet, not going from 2 to 3 next year, and it's really becoming much more important to me that I've got to get ahead of this.
You don't know anything about that, do you, Shayna?
I was going to say, I have realized, and I realize this every 6 years, that I really have got to figure out how to organize this stuff, because one year I organize it one way, the next year I organize it a different way. And even I was talking to Andy about this earlier, how or what I measure.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, and if I did it consistently the same way, it would make it so much easier.
And that's part of what Andy and I discussed on one of our monthly calls of talking through, because I know I've got 3 going up for promotion within my office. And it was one of those where I've got a system that works for me. I've been up for promotion with so many ups and downs and crazies that I finally had to figure out a method. And going with the figuring out all that data and where you get numbers from and how do I calculate that I'm going to calculate it again this year. And that gets really frustrating when you have no clue how in the world you came up with that number. And so it's one of those things that everybody does it absolutely differently. But if you find that one method that works for you, maybe seeing somebody else's methods can help you inspire yourself to create your own method.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing that Heather and I really wanted to go through this. We're going to show you some things, but what works for us may not work for you. I can tell you that I'm a random file kind of person, and I will lose my mind if people rearrange my desk because I know where things are. You may not. May not make any sense to anyone but me, but it does to me. That would be like someone coming in to rearrange your computer files. You're like, hmm. So we're going to talk about this in places where can you find some stuff, and we're going to talk about these 3 things right now, and then we're going to look at some other methods out there. So one place you can always find stuff is the ES237. But there's a statement in research about it, your data is only as good as what's put in it. So making sure that all of your information is entered into the ES237, your group enrollments, all the things are in there. But it's a very valuable resource if you're trying to show growth of a program. Enrollment was this, and it moved to this. You have data right there. It's evergreen. Evergreen means it's always there, and it doesn't change once it's been sealed off for the year. So you can look back at, if you say I'm going to have my goal is for 10% growth, then you can say, okay, I had 100 youth involved this year. I had 110 last year. Well, there's my 10%. And I can show that, and then I can cite my ES237. You know where the information is, you know where it's located, and the beauty of that is a lot of times all you got to do is ask Matt. Hey, Matt, I need a little bit of help with this, or I'm not sure how to make this report. Tell me what I'm wanting it to tell me. And this also something that I believe that Candy and I are thinking about working towards is looking at some retention stuff using ES237 data that we can then share with folks to write impactful retention objectives and things like that. So that's certainly something that's out there, and it's something that Matt Olson, we all know Matt, he has actually done a workshop on this about ES237 and using the data and how to use it in your reports. And I believe if we look, and I'm going to stop sharing right now, but I'm going to start showing a few links. If your computer allows you to have up Teams at the same time all this is going on, you can follow along, or I'm going to just share my screen. What would y'all prefer? You want to try to follow along, or just share my screen?
Share your screen, Andy.
I'll share my screen.
That way anybody that is not here that might be watching the recording can actually visually see it.
Hey, that's a great idea. So if we look, this should be pretty familiar to everybody. This is our I7 folder. This is where a lot of things are stored, a lot of information. And when we're looking at 4-H Online, this is that 1.6 right here. And when I click on this, I can get all kinds of information about 4-H Online and different trainings and recordings and things like that. So this is a place where you can go to find some information about how to do some things, but it's also a way to just learn more about the ES237 and what may be out there. And of course, with all things ES237, who do we ask? Andy? We ask Matt. Because you ask Andy, Andy's going to ask Matt. And I don't mind if you feel like you prefer to start with me to see if I know something, which would be great. But Matt is certainly the person. The next thing I want to show that you saw on there is the curriculum resources. And Sarah Hensley is our evaluation and curriculum person here in Florida. And if we look in her curriculum 1.5 evaluation resources, look under files, what we're going to see is evaluation resources. And this is pretty amazing. I'm going to click this one right here, Evaluation Tools Clearinghouse. Tell me if you're able to actually see this when it pops up. Can you actually see it?
No.
All right, I'm going to have to stop that share and share this one individually because this is something that I really want y'all to be able to see. So what this right here is a list of all these Qualtrics surveys in here that when you're wanting to evaluate your program, if you're developing plans to evaluate or what's the best way to evaluate something, there may be some surveys that have already been developed, and these are all in Qualtrics that could be sent out. Now, I believe that these can be printed if you want to do it the print and paper style, but if you want to do it this way, where you send out the link to ask the survey, at the end of the year, Sarah has a student, I believe, that compiles all this information and then sends it to you. And then you're going to have the data that you need that's in this particular survey. That'll come to you and Sarah will send it to you. This is the same for our embryology program. There's a state embryology evaluation if you use that. And it's also the same if you use the school enrichment public speaking. It has a Qualtrics evaluation that at the end of the year, Sarah will send you your report. And that makes it real easy for you to, over time, if you're using the same evaluation, that'll be every year. It hasn't changed in probably 10 years or so. So then you'll be able to really compare growth if you're wanting to show growth, if you want to show learned over time. And it's always asking the same thing. So it'll certainly make your writing portion a lot easier.
Andy, scroll to the left on, sorry.
Okay.
We couldn't see the names of all of the surveys, but we could see the Qualtrics link. So scroll to the left.
Scroll to the left.
Because all we see is D and E. Ah, there we go.
There we go.
Yeah, just a lot of different ones that are fantastic.
Thanks. I couldn't tell from mine. I was like, oh, I can see it all. But yeah, so that's, and this is not in any of the folders. When you click on the folder about evaluation resources, this is a spreadsheet that's in there. And this has really good stuff. But the big takeaway I want you to have from this is that if you use this, it compiles the data for you, and then Sarah will send it to you, and it's the same over time. It's the same over time. It'll make your reporting uber easier. It won't take away a lot of the work, but will certainly make it a little bit easier. Before I go on,
we'll discuss some things that you do, some ideas of what you do with that data once you get it, because you got that data, then you got to remember where you put that and how to calculate all that. So I've been through that. That's where I've got the ideas.
Mm-hmm. So the other thing, I'm going to share again the actual, I think this is the PowerPoint. The last thing is internal share drives. I think that do both of y'all's offices have internal share drives? Or do you actually share them with other people, or does 4-H just have their own, but then people can go to it if they need to?
Each county has their own drive that they access through Teams. So within Columbia, we've got different drives for each section, and then specifically 4-H in my county, I've made us have a POWROA drive specifically, or channel specifically for that has all of the data information on it.
Yeah, and the reason I really wanted to put this in here is because I know that both, well, in this case, both Marty and Shana, y'all have program assistants that may be collecting data for you. And instead of them handing you a stack of paper, that they might be able to compile some of the things and then put it in a shared drive that you can then access as you need it. as they're doing a program, they evaluate the program, they update the spreadsheet, or however it is you want to have it managed. But that way, and the same thing if they are producing some materials or things like that that you're overseeing, that would be something that might actually show up in your ROA POW, that they can put them in there too. And that way you'll know what it is. But then it becomes the agent's responsibility to say, hey, this is where I'd like to have this put, and to make sure that as things get done, that they're put there, because that way when you do need the data, that you'll be able to then ask. And Shana, I see your hand just came up.
Well, you gave me an idea. With doing that, you can also take all of that and then upload it into your civil rights files at the same time.
Yep.
So that you're not having to do 5 years worth of data input at once.
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't even thought of that, but that is so correct. But this is a way that you can direct other people, because there may be instances where you may have multiple 4-H agents in the same place, but you might actually work in some of the same areas. Just make sure that everybody understands what goes where type of situation. Or if I'm only the one who, like when I was in Jacksonville 1,000 years ago, I was the one who reported on school enrichment. So all the school enrichment stuff came to my side, and all the other stuff went the other way, depending on who was in the office at the time. So just keep in mind that there's all these different tools are out there, and they all serve a slightly different purpose, and they have different ways to do things. But I also really feel that with the internal shared drives and things like that, especially when you're working with program assistants that are out doing programs, doing evaluations, creating marketing pieces, and all those things, that then you be able to have those available if somebody asks, or if you can access them if you need them, and then to keep for your reports. So I'm going to stop for just a second. And does anybody have any kind of setup on an internal drive? I heard Heather did. Marnie, do you or Shana have any kind of setup?
Like saved file. I don't have a real good way, Andy. I kind of, I use the ES-237. We try to get all of our group enrollments in there, saved under different names. Yeah, and then I track my camps separately in a spreadsheet. So, day camp programs.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bit of a hodgepodge. I wish I had one place, because it's a nightmare in November trying to, and the problem
Yep.
is some files, some things I keep on my side of the computer.
Right.
So my ROA POW is only on my side. So when I create when I create those spreadsheets that I want to keep continuously feeding information into, my program assistant doesn't have access. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm taking what she's doing and I'm re-adding it into a spreadsheet. I don't know.
Marnie, I got ideas for you. I really want to, because that's my thing, is I've spent a lot of time being discombobulated and all that. And I finally got a program assistant in my world. And so I've got ideas big time.
Well,
Yeah.
but it's my reluctance to let someone else into a
I get it.
spreadsheet, and if they make a mistake, I am out of luck. You know what I'm saying? I'm
I
like,
do, but I've got an idea that will stop that from potentially happening.
I can't
I
wait
really
to hear
do.
this one.
No. Can I share, Andy?
No, not your turn
Can
yet.
we move on over? If you want to
Just a
throw up my
second.
slide, you can. I'm
I
just so
will.
excited.
I
It's
know,
really
but I'm going to see if anybody else wants to share anything
oh,
else.
share Shayna. Share with us, Shayna.
So like I have the year files of the 4-H year, and this is just file. Okay. This is not, I do not have a spreadsheet like my counterparts where everything is entered in and super organized, and there's formulas, and it just gives her the
Yeah.
data, because I can't get it together, whatever. But I do have, like, every year has a club file, an activity file, a summer file, and then within those files are the things that we do. And so, I reference those back and forth and back and forth. And those are on the general drive that everyone has access to. But then we also have like a separate file that's like, it's labeled Shayna. So like my quarterly reports are in there, but then my private drive is my ROAPW, those kinds of things.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, one of the things, my strategies when I do things is I try to update my ROPAL as I go along. I try to update it as I go along, and I use the Qualtrics to evaluate a program, and I use the same one. Okay, your slide's up, Heather.
So excited. Sorry. This is something that it took me a
This
long
is
time
cool.
to figure out, and it makes me excited because it's something that I feel like helps me and got me in a gold, if you do real colors, in an organized way, because I am so orange and bouncy in here and there and everywhere that I'm like Marnie of, I'm not going to evaluate for the exact same thing. Well, that's okay. But if I can come up with those things, those outcomes that I'm going to evaluate, then I'm going to be okay. So first, let me share. I'm going to share my ROPAL. Sorry, I know
Nice.
not everybody loves seeing those. Let me
No,
share
that's my
that
favorite thing.
screen. All right, so this is my page, and we'll get there in a minute. But in my ROPAL, I have the outcomes that I know I have to report on. And those are the ones that I do every single year. And you know how we were talking about, like the Qualtrics, you get all that data and it goes into a file into your wherever, whoever decides wherever they want to save them. And you have to pull out each form individually. Then you have to figure out where it goes and all that crazy. So I created a chart and I put it by year. And you see, I've got 25, 24, 23, 22. I put the total number that were evaluated, and then I put my answers for each one. So all I've got to do is go through, add those up on a total thing, and then create the percentages. So whenever I send it in for my packet, this highlighted section is what it looks like. So you don't include the charts, you just do your percentages. It just makes it easier for you to calculate. Now another
And you
one.
see where she has her end that's listed up there as well.
Yeah, and I've got it highlighted.
Yeah,
So all I'll do is the percentages, and that way it's all together. But then, for example, you see how my volunteer section over here, I've got a certain percentage, and yes, and I'm not saying that my objectives or my outcomes are perfect, but I do multiple outcomes to go with one objective. I feel like the percentages highlight it more and make it a stronger outcome. So these outcomes are the ones that I always report on. The last 2 times that I've done a promotion packet, that's what I ended up reporting on. So now I've got, and this one's done a little differently, but it's because different ones may answer different questions, or it may be different reporting. So it's not a total number of evaluated, it's each number evaluated per outcome. So I've got the number that answered yes, they could do that, or yes, they did that, and then the total number evaluated. So I report those that way, and I put it in a chart, and whenever I'm done, I will take it and add it into this big paragraph, but that's where my numbers come from. So it's all reported in one place. And then one other thing I'll show y'all. So I don't know if I've influenced or what, but some people do a lot of reporting on finances and how their numbers have changed because of their finances change and thus the number of participants change. So when I do that, here, for example, in my volunteer, because the other section over there is for CED, but my volunteer organizational systems, I've got where I do, because I've even got all the way back through 2006 whenever I was hired. So I add all those numbers together. But the way I get those numbers for each section is I report by year, and I go through and I add them all up. So that's an opportunity or an option that you could do within your ROPAL to keep up with that data. And that's totally up to you, but whatever works for you. Now, another option, everybody ready to change gears? Okay. Another option is, last time I did my promotion packet, before I figured out adding all those charts in, I created, let's see, let me find one a little bit. This is where I did my economic impact. So basically, whenever I increase the number of participants, or excuse me, when I increase the number of monetary contributions, then I thus increase the number of participants. And it's a little too complicated of an objective, so it's definitely been changed, but this is just an example of how to report it. So each year I would come in and input my data, and then I was able to take that data and use it to create a chart. Now, let me say this about charts for anybody watching this now or in the future. It depends on the year. Some years they're great with charts. Sometimes they hate charts. So don't, because I'm showing you this, think you're going to put a chart in your packet. So just word of thing, whatever your district director suggests, go with it. But that was how I did it back then, was I did a chart. Yes, that's a very confusing looking chart, but it made sense in my brain at the time. So that's an opportunity though, with even, okay, here I calculate the number of participants on this tab. And so you can see 2013, 14, 15, and that's when I was 4-H and family consumer science. So I was measuring the number of youth and adult participants and the increases in that. So I was able to create an increase by year and be able to report on those outcomes. So putting it all in a spreadsheet, but that would be at the end of the year, you add all of your numbers there.
So, question for you, Heather. You're
Mm-hmm.
showing all these fun things. Are these things?
Share.
Okay, that's what I thought.
I'd be
I knew
willing
the
to
answer
share.
was yes, what I was about to say, but I just
Yeah.
want to throw that out there because I saw some nodding, and this might be. Are you muted, Marty?
But
Heather,
and that's what I say.
I have a spreadsheet like that, and I track participation, club participation, school enrichment participation, but I never really reported it the way you. I never thought about putting.
So that's whenever
putting
I
a
have
dollar
the data,
value on it.
like where Shayna's sitting right now and having to go back in and put all the data together. That's when I was having to do it that way. Now that I'm starting on a new packet, and I started this a couple of years ago, I created Google Forms. That's where you can stop anybody from changing your spreadsheets. So these are the forms. So I have my program assistant's name in here, and we put in the person teaching. So whenever she goes in, she knows, she puts in the name of the program, the date, the number in that group, and then these are the objectives I have. So it's just exactly what came from my packet. And she's read through them. She knows what she's going towards. There's different sections that she knows we're evaluating because we've had that conversation. I've learned that she's able to call and get some things donated sometimes. So I want to make sure I give her the opportunity to report financials in there. So, and if I are to get something donated, I want somewhere to record all of that. Otherwise, I will forget, and so gave me, I don't know, a bucket of honey. Literally, we had that almost happen, but we had little sticks of honey donated to go with the ag literacy books. And we've got to get a calculation on how much that was, but I can guarantee you right now, because I'm not always on top of things, promise, just because I'm showing you this doesn't mean I'm organized. There was honey donated. So probably $150 worth of honey that's not been reported anywhere. So it needs to be going into this sheet. Well, once she figures out, and I've got the form set up, whenever she goes through, it'll take her to the correct tab based on the objective that she's doing. So it wouldn't be on this one, but STEM and ag literacy is the one. So then she's able to sit there in the classroom and say, how many of y'all increased, or how many of y'all learned something? And they raise their hand. She can literally count how many's in the room, and she'll answer that whenever she's doing the reporting, but she can count how many says, yes, they increase their knowledge. Yes, that is not a on paper evaluation, but it is on the spot, visual. What's the right wording for that, Andy?
That's just self-response or
self-response. There you go. See, I knew there was a technical
it's
term.
an observation.
Yes,
yeah.
so
Thank you.
observations.
That too.
Yep.
Yeah, it's an observational.
But then you can ask them, however you word it, in the correct youth development level of applying that information. Identifying things.
I love these Google forms. This is a good idea, because all those things, I'm like, I have to open up my spreadsheet. I've got to add it in there.
But
then,
well, and that's the thing, Marnie, is whenever
everywhere.
Once you get all of that data, let me go find the 2023 version really quick. Once you get all of that data in, you're able to pull up a spreadsheet. So I've got 19 responses in my spreadsheet. And you pull that up in Google Sheets. Now you can do this with a Microsoft form too. I'm just not super skilled with Microsoft forms. Shayna knows she and I learned all the Google stuff during 2020. So it's just easier.
COVID
But
forms.
you can see Zoe was the main one that went in and input, my program assistant. She input each one of these and she told me how many were in the group. And then she told me each thing that she evaluated. So I can scroll across. So she had 73 total in the group, 60 increased their understanding of subject matter, 60 were able to apply the information taught, 70 were able to identify things in agriculture beyond a farmer and a farm. So it's that simple that all you do is she pulls that up and she's able to go boom, 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 and do the reporting. Now, the cool way of doing that, because yes, I've got tons of forms. That's not the only form, but I'll show you some of the others here in just a
But before
second.
you move on,
Yep.
let's talk just a little bit more about that Google form.
Okay.
So when did you start? Because I was thinking in terms of what Marty, she has the spreadsheet right now. Would you suggest if you're going to be doing a packet next year, should you just stick with that one and then move towards the Google form? Or I'm
Take
just
everything
thinking
on the spreadsheet and create a form that encompasses that spreadsheet so that you can send that form to your program assistant for the next year and a half. Or
And
next year, actually, is what it'll be.
the next question I was also going to ask, it seems to me that you could just add as many names as you wanted to. Let's say that you got a second volunteer,
Yep.
or not a volunteer, but you got a second program assistant, or another agent is going to
Yep.
teach a workshop for you or something like that, that they could actually come in and then get all that information too. But that information would be something that maybe would be shared with them, or I don't know if I'd want to be tracking other agent stuff, but
No, because they wouldn't necessarily answer. I mean, unless you had an agreement with them of, oh, I'll teach this portion if you'll volunteer for me this day and teach this for me, and you've trained them on it.
Yeah.
Then you tell them, okay, this is the evaluation question. Or maybe y'all are doing the same program and you're reporting on all the information or all the participants in that program. Maybe you do part of the days of the scheduled program and they do another part of them. So that's where you guys would come together, have your sheet, and be able to evaluate the exact same things. That makes sense to everybody? Good deal. All right, so that's kind of what the form looks like, and they would input and then they'd hit next, and it'd take them, because I've got it set up where it's the if then type settings, and I can share these sheets no problem. I've done this with other folks in the past. Whenever I created them, I was so excited that it was like, oh, but it's one of those that you got to get there and know that that's what you want to use. So one of the other things that we were talking about earlier with group enrollments and all, that's something that I know can be super painful on getting staff to help you with reporting, right? So I do have mine set up, and let me do the preview mode. I have my group enrollment where I can send this link to a teacher. These are all the things that we're teaching this year that I can be able to send it out whenever I do Florida 4-H public speaking. That's included in all of the paperwork. And this is where I say, okay, to register for this program, go fill out the group enrollment here. Then I'll bring you the materials. That way there's no worry over, am I going to get their information or not, even though I take them all that stuff that we've spent money on. So once you do that, let me go back.
I just want you to just keep in mind that when she collects this information, it can't stay here. It has to go into 4-H Online, but this is a great
Correct.
way, an easy way for her to collect that information, then to be transferred into 4-H Online.
So you get all those responses and you can see all the highlights. That's where if my staff has taken the information to them. So not only does my program assistant have access to this chart, because they've got to have access to the chart for this, but if I don't trust them with the chart, that's when I only send them the link to the form to input the information. But you do have the ability to see versions and who made changes and who did uh-ohs on Google Sheets. So you can actually go back and find information if it gets deleted. But for example, Florida 4-H public speaking, that's all my numbers in there, and I can actually come down and be able to calculate it and come up with the exact numbers of kids that were participating. So I was able to, we had ours February 29th, I was able to stand up before the entire group and say, look, we had over 1,200 kids participate this year because of the enrollments this way. Once I get some of this stuff in, then I will tell my staff, okay, now it's time. Let's start doing group enrollments. You need to make sure that you've got every one of these in 4-H online. And it makes it easier where she knows. And I've got the chart fields, like the questions in the group enrollment form, all done in the exact same order that the 4-H online is, so that it's super simple. She goes down the thing, she goes from box to box to box to box and inputs the data specifically from there or directly from there. Questions on this one? Okay. Shayna, good? I know you had done this at one point with me.
Yeah,
or maybe
no,
I stole yours.
I still, it was a combination, I think. But I do this as well. Maybe not as in depth, because I just have them like, but what grade do you teach? They don't.
Well, and that probably would make it easier, but I haven't had many problems.
Yeah,
Once they got into the
it's
habit
great.
of doing it,
It's great
they've been pretty good about it.
to pull it and put it straight into 4-H online.
Were you going to
Well-
say something, Marnie? I thought I saw you.
No, I mean, I'm just impressed that you do so many different school enrichment programs.
I have a fantastic staff that supports, and we're able to send a lot of stuff directly to the classroom. Our horticulture agent, you see I know it's crazy, but like the work of the wings, my horticulture agent was able to go in and do some things with that. We had the caterpillars in the classroom is what she did. She had some caterpillars that they were able to clip off, and it actually came from Duval County, that they were working with them, and she had some extras and I think some of the curriculum from Duval. But it's all stuff that still gets reported as a 4-H activity in this county, whether I do it or not. And we have a very cohesive office whenever it comes to that stuff too, of all of us work together on that stuff. Me being the CED, and being 4-H, it's where, yeah, everybody's got their 5%, and it's kind of a given. Now, not everybody's that fortunate. I can say I'm extremely fortunate with the support that I have and the understanding of 4-H in this office.
But no, I think it's really interesting, especially say in a larger office where you may have other folks that are doing things in schools in a group enrollment situation, that if something like this was there, you could say, hey, fill this out and we'll make sure it gets in. Of course, you know.
Well, and
So
that's very true. Well, and let me not trying to jump around at all, but just on furthering onto that point, but I got to give you some steps before I get there. So I have it all set up on a website. All of this stuff, yeah, I know you got all these links, and then you have to go find the form, and it's like, where is it, and what link do I share? And if I'm out in the school and I want to pull up that evaluation form, how in the world do I get there? Then I have to go into my Google Forms, and I have to figure out what the link is, and then I have to try to use my phone for it, and it drives me nuts and crazy and all that stuff. So I have a website that I put all the links into. Call me crazy, but it takes 5 minutes. I can send this, you can copy it, any of that stuff if you're interested in that. But literally throwing in those little things, and you can do pretties or you don't have to do pretties. You can just do the links. I wanted to spend some extra time because I was still playing with websites whenever I started it, and that's where I added. So this one, all right, for 2024, and I'll be honest, I just created this today. I am behind in my year. I didn't do 2023, you'll see. I don't know why, but I had all the data. So I didn't need it last year. But for the purposes of showing you guys, that's why I went ahead and updated it, and I'll show you what I did with it once I updated it, which is I'm really excited about. So 2022, I had all the information here, all of my links to all of my forms. I can pull that up on a mobile website on my phone, click the link, and it takes me directly to the form. Now, I won't be able to necessarily play with the spreadsheet from it. If I download extra apps, I can, but sometimes that's entirely too much. You just want the form, you want to be able to input the data. So that's a huge thing that's beneficial. You can see I did it in 2021. It just depends on what you need that year. I've figured out now in 2024, because of how we've changed all of our reporting on not civics. What's all the sign-in sheets and how we do those, how I can't maybe I could never do it, but I'd never realized that I couldn't just count in the classroom how many I had in each race and each gender and all that stuff. And I used to be able to pull up a sign-in sheet and input that information. Well, you can't do that. So that form's gone. So whenever I did that, I also created, and let me minimize some things, and I might have to shrink y'all for a second and move it to a different screen. Yep, I created a note on my screen. So you can do a sticky note using Microsoft. You go into the search bar, let's see, sticky notes. And all you do is open up sticky notes and you create a note on your desktop. And no, they're not links because I haven't figured out how to do that yet. We will figure that out. But I have each one of those forms and my website all on a sticky note on my desktop. Where all I gotta do is copy it, paste it into Google, and boom, I'm good to go.
So, but you're in the Gator Cloud, right? You're not on your desktop.
Correct.
I
Wait,
hate
oh,
the
that's
Gator
right, you
Cloud.
can't.
I can find nothing. I don't know how to use it. I don't know how to organize it.
You're talking about on Teams, right, Marnie?
I'm on team. I got to,
Okay.
No, Gator Cloud, the Gator Cloud,
SharePoint.
the SharePoint. Oh, it's a nightmare. I
Okay.
have to favorite things or I can never
I will
find
show
them
you
again.
something in a minute. I'll show you something else in a minute.
Okay.
But on this same subject, whenever you're inputting this stuff into your packet, right? So Andy was talking about inputting, sorry if you get the Blair Witch and I make you crazy. Andy was talking about how he updates his stuff as he goes and tries to remember to input it. I try to. I'm not always perfect at it. I've already got a link I need to send Andy right now, though. But whenever I go in, I do go ahead and put them. Now, whenever I do my reporting of citations, I'll always do available at URL. I was told, now Andy may have a different opinion because he's been on the committee and things, but I was told pretty much now, everything you do should have a link. You should have it published somewhere online. It should be on the internet in some form or fashion. Andy, do you have different interpretation of that?
Yeah, it's not the things like abstracts and things like that, and some publications for sure. But things like your PowerPoints that you're putting together and things like that, there's less expectation for that, but more expectation for your presentations. If you say you did an abstract, I should be able to go to it and find it. If you say that I have an EDIS pub, I should be able to click a link and find it. If you say that you do online with online teaching, unless it's one of those old mail.ifas type things that's no longer active, I should be able to click on it and find it. So what you're doing here, I think is really cool.
So I
see
do
what
go ahead and do
Yeah.
URLs for every single thing. Now, and Andy's saying that we don't necessarily have to have that. One of the things that I do on my personal OneDrive, so I've got tons of OneDrive folders, files. This was originally on Google. So this one is in a Google Files folder on my OneDrive. But within my OneDrive, I have 21, 22, 23, 24. So for example, already this year, these are all the different sections that I have publications in so far. So say I want to look at my abstracts and figure out the links that I'm using within my RoPal. This is where I've already saved. And what I do just for my own mental sanity, because all of our associations change over websites constantly. They change directors, they change all of that, and it gets really irritating on packets. I download those proceedings, I upload them here. And that way I'm done. I don't have to go find it anymore. I control whether this file name or this link changes. I'm the only one that controls that. So something else. Let's see. EDIS publications, I do the same. So all of my publications, I go ahead and save those because EDIS may go crazy and decide they want to change links too. They've done it. And then multimedia is what I was looking for. Okay, so whenever I create a PowerPoint, this one that Andy and I just did, I went ahead and downloaded it as a PDF and I upload it to my instructional multimedia presentations and I have the URL for it. So once you upload it here, you right click, hit copy link, it pulls up, it shows you the actual, that the link has been copied and you can change the settings with how people can access it. but it's a PDF. Nobody can edit it anyway unless they pull it down and put it in Adobe to be able to edit it. But once I do that, I go to my RoPal, I highlight wherever I'm going, I right click, and I hit link if I don't already have it linked, or I hit edit hyperlink. And that way I can update the links on them. Questions?
You're very
You s-
organized.
So
Took a long time.
I do not have available at, I just have the URL listed. But then too, if you create things in Canva, you can make a public view link and just copy the link and do it that way too.
Yes. But Shayna, what if Canva goes down?
I mean, Google could go
That's-
down.
Agreed, but
I'm
that's why I
saying.
do it the way I do, of downloading the PDF and store that stinker on my Google Files in my publications drive. No, I agree. Either way, it's just for me having it all in one location in my mental little bit of organization. I want them there where I have actual, not touch the files, but I can see each individual file in a listing, and all I have to do is right click and get the link. So yes, you can do Canva either way, but for just, and for you that works. For me and my mental sanity, that wouldn't work because it's not in one location for me. So that's where I struggled, was bouncing around so many places. Because my last promotion packet, I'll be honest, and whoever watches this, you could know, no pity wanted, but it covered 8 years. And I had to consolidate 8 years of data in one location. And so that's why you saw that one spreadsheet. Now that's why you see what I've changed to in my future promotion packets, of making sure that that data is right there at my fingertips, where everything I need is there and all I've got to do is go to one spot. Now I will show you one other thing. And Marnie, in Teams, you can actually go to the files and you select in those files, you can sync it to your desktop. So whenever I go to Columbia, this is my team for UFIPUS extension right here. And I have that synced to my desktop. Now you can't go in here and start deleting stuff. You can't go in here and start renaming stuff, but you can access stuff here. So whenever I want to, these are all the channels within our extension team. So for example, we have a channel, I have to remember the order. We have a channel called POWROA. Well, whenever I go there, we've got all of the files from the office, and this is shared by all the agents. We input all of the POWROAs. That's because I have to have them a CED to send to the director and to be able to do evaluations and what have you, appraisals. So I store them there. But then within there, each individual agent has a folder of their own. So you can see I have all of my past ROA POWs. Whenever I had that on my personal drive, I would struggle finding it or losing it. It's easier now where if somebody asks me, well, what'd you do this year or what'd you do with this? I can go in here and I find all of the years together. So also within that, if you're doing certificates, any of the reporting, any of the data that you want to share or save, for example, 2023 data, I have the 4HU demographics that I did. I have a folder and I just throw all of it in there. Now, I have done spreadsheets for that too sometimes, and it depends on the year of how it goes. But you're welcome to play with spreadsheets and aggregate that stuff. You just have to figure out what works for you in the moment. Questions?
I say, let's catch our breath, because I feel like
I know.
somebody just turned on the fire hydrant, and there's a lot of stuff coming at us. So, are there any questions about what I'm kind of seeing is that Heather just has a model that through the school of hard knocks, he's decided that this is what's going to really work well for me, and trying to keep up with things. But again,
definitely.
our takeaway from this is not you need to do it Andy's way, you need to do it Heather's
Nope.
way. It's just to find an interesting way, and here are some things that can help. And Heather and I did have this conversation that if this is something that you wanted to borrow some of these materials, or for her to help you set up something,
I don't mind at all.
that would be that's the whole whole point of doing this to show what's available if this is something that you might be interested in, because I didn't realize that you could sync your team stuff like you just showed. So I've learned
Oh,
something
really?
today too.
Okay.
I always go straight to teams.
Let me
I
see if
don't.
I can do it on here. Since we were talking about that, let me see if I can. Oh, there it is. All right, I'm going to share my screen again. Let me go to a team.
I just am a member of so many stinking teams. I just go to the team.
All right, so I'm going to share, and I'm going to share the right page. All right, so I'm going to go to IFAS Columbia Extension. And this is our office team. Sorry, I have to blow back up Teams over here so I could see y'all. Go to Files, like you normally would, right? All right, so I am in Main, and the easiest way to do this is you open in SharePoint. And I know this is lots of steps, but go to your team, open in SharePoint. Once you pull up SharePoint, you will be actually at the whatever channel you were in. Well, you don't just want that one channel, right? You want the entire team. So you go to Documents. That shows you all the channels. Well, once you do all the channels, all you hit is sync. Whenever you hit sync, it will actually literally populate over here in your University of Florida. You'll see a little buildings and you'll see University of Florida and you'll see your different drives. So I've got my National Association, we have a team, and I've got all of my files from that right here because I access them all the time. And for me, accessing things on Teams is horrible. I hate looking at Word documents. It drives me nuts completely. So I'd rather download. Now, it does cause whenever you're working with someone over that same document, it does cause a lag and catch up, just like it does whenever you're working on that document online. But you have to make sure that Andy and I experienced that you have to be kind of slow in editing with that person you're editing with one-on-one.
Yeah, we certainly discovered that, especially if you're trying to edit the same sentence.
Yes.
We actually had to go in 2 different slides.
Yes.
All right,
Entertainment.
Heather, you lost me.
Oh,
So
okay.
you were in Teams, you opened the channel, then you opened it in SharePoint,
Yep.
and then you saved it to your local.
So in SharePoint, once you go into SharePoint, you make sure, let me see, you go back. All right, I'm gonna hit share again. All right, and then I'm gonna make it where I can see y'all's wonderful faces again. So once you are in whatever channel you were in, you hit open in SharePoint. Once you go to SharePoint, you come over here. I was in the general channel. You don't want to just sync the general channel. You want all of the channels. So you click right here where it says Documents. Once you click Documents, it shows you all of the channels within that team, correct? All right, so I want all of these channels synced to my desktop. So you actually hit sync right here. And once you hit sync, it places it, and it may take a little while for it to catch up because it's having to basically copy all that stuff from Microsoft Teams to your computer. Now, it can slow your computer down a smidgen, so you may not want every single team. I've got a heck of a memory on mine, so I wasn't really worried. And I'm going to get John Macias, and I hope he sees this. I say, John, come fix my drive for me.
Is there a
So
way
it's one
that
of
you can,
those.
instead of downloading the actual document, that it actually just downloads a hot link?
And it might, that's what I don't know. You might
When
have to get with him and see if he can give you some links, but it won't populate this way. Now you could save this as a link to your desktop, but you're still going to have to download those documents to open them just like you do in Teams, or to print them just like
I'm
you do in
looking across
Teams.
the top. I see it says add shortcut to OneDrive. I wonder if that's the way you do it. Because basically you're adding the shortcut. So instead of having to download 1,000
Maybe.
files,
Let's see
you're
what it
just
does.
downloading I literally looked over there and I said, I wonder if that's it.
It says unable to sync shortcut, but someone else
I
might
guess
have
that
success
answers
in it.
that.
Nope, mine might be a little cray-cray.
I'm
You
scared to
never know.
click anything right now.
Let's see. Oh, geez.
I was gonna say, you can do that from Teams. You don't have to do that in SharePoint. You can go into your channel on Teams, and up at the top, there's a sync button.
And do just that channel. But if you want all the channels, that's when you have to go to SharePoint. Right?
No.
I think no, because I'm
Yes.
looking like what Shayna was saying. I'm actually in Teams. You got to be in the main channel, and then you can see all the other channels. And I see
Oh,
sync and then add
There it goes.
shortcut.
You're right, Shayna.
But like I
Yep.
said, I'm scared to click anything right now. So
Because you can hit sync right there. You're right. I'm wrong.
Okay. I'm still
that.
confused. I'm still
No.
confused because we run everything off the F drive. The F drive is what is shared with my program assistant.
Okay.
So if I download that to my desktop, that's still not going to help anything.
It's not that you're downloading it to your desktop necessarily. It's still, if you open it through there, it still saves to Teams. It still works that way. It's not wholeheartedly saved solely on your drive.
No, it's
but
it has a standing place, but it's synced. And every time you update it, it automatically, let me show you the file. Let me pull it back up. Where did it go? Sorry, y'all, I've got entirely too many files. Go ahead, Shayna.
It makes finding your files so much easier because it keeps them in the same order that they've always been. Whereas when you go into Teams, it's different every time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, okay, my ROAPOW. Whenever I go in there to update, I actually can come to this file. I click it here, and I'll move it back over here where you guys can see. Let me zoom. But what it actually does up here is whenever you get a file, when you do save, it automatically saves back. See this file name right here? IFAS-Columbia-extension, which is our team. And it saves right back to ROAPOW, Heather ROAPOW, to that file that is in that drive. It updates that drive immediately instead of me doing a separate document and updating it and having to re-upload it and resave it. And once someone pops into it up here, it would actually show that someone else is in that same document.
all right, well, we're starting to run out of time here, and that was drinking from the fire hydrant. And I'm just gonna pop this back up real quick so we can wrap up. So I think we've covered everything on Heather's slide. We talked earlier about the using your charts and data, and we just finished covering the other publications and how all these things work together. What works for me most is just update as I go along, and hope I don't forget anything. So we're at the end of the PowerPoint. Are there any questions that we may not have followed, or is there something that you do that you find that really works well for you? And again, like Heather said, about some of the questions or things like that, you can give her a call, you can give me a call, and we can. Now the whole sync team stuff, that's a call Heather.
That's mine.
The whole Qualtrics thing and those states.
That's Andy.
That's me.
I can do Google. Shayna can do Google. It's hard to nominate you.
So what we got? Any other last statements or comments or?
I need to come and sit in Heather's office for a couple of days with my computer.
You're welcome to come. Schedule it with me, Marty, and we'll get you
I
fixed.
want to hold him.
I had to bring him out because he's got to go to the vet now.
Oh.
If y'all have any questions, reach out to me. I am here for you. And thank y'all for listening to my crazy bounce around. That stuff, to have that kind of path and that direction finally in my data, it made me feel so much better. Just having some sort of something to know that at the end of the year, all I've got to go through and do is input numbers in certain locations. I don't have to rewrite my ROA POW every year. To me, that is the biggest pain in our system, is having to recreate the wheel, basically. And so just being able to plug and play, that's reporting to me.